world experts in policy, research, clinical care, and wellness on ways to overcome these challenges. Let's find out today on GLI Live.
Hello and happy Valentine's Day. My name is Donna R. I am the founder and CEO of the Global Liver Institute, and I have the great privilege of being your host for these episodes of GLI Live. Now, for those of you who are wondering, where's my Valentine's Day red? Well, I went with my rare disease stripes instead, because we are celebrating all things rare throughout this month, with a particular emphasis on transitions of care and how difficult those transitions can be, and how many points of transition you may not have realized there are. To help me make it make sense, which is my personal hashtag of the year, are two really wonderful guests. So to be discussing as part of this Rare series, Forging a Path After Diagnosis, which is the particular area of transition that we'll be discussing. I have Dr. Cecilia Duenas and I have Tina Money with me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Cecilia, why don't we start with you and just tell our guests a little bit about you and how you arrived here on our screens?
Sure. Hi. So I am a wife and mother of two girls. I'm also a clinical pediatric psychologist. I was diagnosed with primary biliary cholangitis in about 2021. It took about 5+ years for me to get a diagnosis, despite having those elevated liver enzymes. At the time, I was having extreme fatigue, was having a lot of pain and itching, and I was just bounced around from provider to provider to provider to provider. And everyone had their own different idea of what was going on. No one ever referred me to a hepatologist. They all just assumed it was the fact that I was really overweight, or the fact that I had just given birth to my second daughter. They all assumed the fatigue was postpartum depression. So, after about a year and a half, I did everything they asked of me. I lost 120 pounds. I went and I saw a psychiatrist, despite being a psychologist myself and knowing this isn't postpartum depression. I just wanted to make sure and follow all of the advice that everyone had given me. Saw an endocrinologist. I saw a nutritionist. I really saw even an OB-GYN, everybody. And everybody just kept bouncing me back to either my primary or the psychiatrist. And finally, my psychiatrist reran labs and said, you know what, these aren't getting any better. They're actually getting worse. And it's not okay. It's not okay that your team has not listened to you. It's not okay that you're not getting answers. And I can't give you those answers. If I were in your shoes, I would fire everyone and start anew. And so that's exactly what I did. Is I fired my entire medical team. I started completely new, and I found young, ethnically diverse providers, especially a PCP. And after 5.5 years, I finally saw the PCP, and he looked at my labs, looked at all of my medical records, because at this point I had everything printed out for everybody. And he said, look, I think you have a liver disease, and I need to refer you to a hepatologist. I'm not sure why you haven't seen one yet, but that is going to be our number one step. And so he referred me to a hepatologist. And at that point, I thought, great, this is awesome. I'm getting answers. Unfortunately for me, that hepatologist wasn't the right fit. I walked in, my appointment was about 45 minutes delayed. And I walked out and asked, hey, are we going to start soon? Because I have work today. I have patients to see. And they said, we're waiting for the translator. And I said, the translator? And she said, yeah, we're waiting for the translator. And she looked really confused. And I said, okay, does the doctor not speak English? And she said, no, we thought you didn't speak English. And I said, well, they never asked me. They never I never indicated in my chart that I don't speak English. Yes, Spanish is my first language. English is my second language, but I'm educated here in the US. I think I sound okay. And the nurse was like, yeah, let me tell her that you don't need a translator. And I asked, how did you guys come up with that conclusion? And the nurse couldn't or didn't want to answer me. And so at that point, I was really frustrated. But the provider came in, and I was like, I'm just going to give them a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And the provider came in, didn't even close the door, didn't even sit down, just looked at me and said, I think you have fatty liver disease. And I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't. I've looked at all the research in the labs, and my PCP and I don't think I have fatty liver disease. Here are my labs. And I handed my records over, and she stopped me. She literally went like this and said, I'm the medical provider, or I'm the doctor. Let me be the doctor, and you stop Googling. And I just felt so defeated. I felt like after 5.5 years, almost 6 years, this is the point I was waiting for, and they're not listening. And so I said, okay, thank you very much. And I got up and I just walked out. And this provider was like, wait, I need to run labs. I need to, we need to figure out what our next step is. And I said, I will figure out my next step. And I went home and I just fell apart and cried. I felt like I wasn't being listened to again. Not only had I been profiled because of my last name, but also I'm I'm not even being heard. She's not even looking at my records. She didn't even close the door. She didn't even sit down. And so I felt really dismissed, and I had already felt dismissed. So again, I went back to the mindset of, okay, I'm not the right fit, move on. And instead of getting really down and waiting, I immediately went on to our Liver Coalition website. I'm in San Diego, so that's Liver Coalition San Diego. And I started scouring all their speakers and everybody who had spoken on any one of their programs. And I came across a hepatologist who was ethnically diverse and identified as the same ethnic background as myself and had research interest in rare diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately called them and scheduled an appointment. And I was diagnosed within 15 minutes of that appointment.
Wow, there's so much to unpack there. I have to admit, going through my mind, I was about to say there's about to be a transition, but it's not. It's not to care. Unfortunately, so many of us have been through that on that path to diagnosis, and there's the assumption that if you are educated and have insurance, that you don't have problems navigating the healthcare system. But even for those of us who are otherwise, educated, literate, health literate, always to do everything that the doctors, say to do, we still have challenges, whether it's the assumption that everything is related back to obesity. Although we, admire and encourage those who are aware of fatty liver disease, not everything is fatty liver disease. Not everything for women is in our heads. So it's not always psychological, although, kudos to those who are paying attention to postpartum depression. And then finally, is such a growing body of literature on how ethnically concordant physician patient care is more successful, and while that's wonderful, we need every physician to be culturally not just competent but qualified, and able to acknowledge and set aside their biases, and to be able to treat anyone who walks through those doors. So you had quite a journey just to get to the diagnosis, let alone the transition after that point. But let me bring Tina in at this point. Tina, I want to say, can you match that? No. Tina, tell us your story.
Well, in 2016, I noticed I was very, very fatigued and really itchy, off balance. Didn't know quite what was wrong with me. Um, so I went to the doctors and I got to run around. I kept getting misdiagnosed, and I finally saw the hepatologist, and it took about 6 months before I was diagnosed with this rare polycystic liver disease. And at this point, it was full blown. My liver was severely enlarged, like the size of a basketball. So it was like really hard to bend
Sure.
because of how large the liver was. And I kept being hospitalized and jaundice, and they they didn't know exactly what to do yet because it's such a rare disease.
Mhm.
So they sent me to a doctor named Richard Kalman, and he was great because he diagnosed me, and he didn't know much about the disease, but we did research together, and they did a liver resection on me in 2018, which they removed 30% of my liver. And I thought that that was the fix. I was so happy. I was feeling better for once, like my old self. And then all of a sudden, wham, here it comes again. It came back with a vengeance, constant hospital stays, constant tubes and bags on my side. I had to retire early because of this disease. And during COVID, I could have no visitors in the hospital. So during that downtime, I discovered my love for acrylic painting, and I actually wrote a book during my downtime while in the hospital. I didn't have nothing else to do, and it took my mind
Mhm.
off of my illness.
It just shows how resilient patients are. What is the name of your book so that everybody can go out and buy it?
Oh, it is called Friend Request.
That is lovely. Oh my goodness. And tell us
Thank
about
you.
what's going on there on the cover before we
Oh,
go one step further. What's going on there on the cover of the book?
well, I use my wild imagination. It's a story about my husband and myself and a stalker in the background, of course. Um, 5 stars so far. It's on Amazon and Etsy.
We will
Um,
put the link to in the show notes. I think
thank
that,
you.
yeah, having done hard time in the hospital without being even that productive, I really just give you kudos for turning that to, the many, many hours um,
Mhm,
into something so tangible. But you raised several issues. One, just why we are here to make
mhm,
sure that physicians and patients and the public, everyone, um, thinks about rare liver diseases, has them on the
mhm,
mind, has them as a possibility. Even hepatologists sometimes don't think about the rare liver diseases, and to have gone through multiple hospitalizations, multiple connections and interactions with healthcare services without finding the right answer or without finding a solution, I think is important for people both to understand can happen even to the best of us, and is what we're working to streamline, so it happens with less frequency, certainly. Um, I also think though that the number of procedures and medications and options and opportunities for liver patients with different types of liver diseases, whether PBC or polycystic liver disease. Most people think there's only polycystic kidney disease, but it affects liver diseases too, are growing every day. I hope someday we'll have a treatment for primary sclerosing cholangitis that is not just transplant, but I'm certainly grateful for the
mhm,
transplant that I've had for these 30 years or so. Um, what would you tell other patients um, after they have the diagnosis? That's just the first step. You talked about partnership with your team, and Celia, you talked about the partnership that that you needed or wish that you'd had. So maybe starting with Tina, talk about once you found that right doctor, what does a partnership with the right physician or care team look like?
Whew, I really don't know how to answer that question.
Well,
um,
just what do you bring to the table? How do you prepare for visits or meetings with them? And what do they do?
Well, actually, I have two doctors,
Hmm.
Dr. Richard Kalman and Dr. Marina Serper, and they're both at two different hospitals,
Hmm.
Einstein and Penn. And I had to bring them together in order to figure out the best thing to do about this disease, because it's hereditary. My mother has it,
Hmm.
two of my sisters have it, my uncle, but it seems as if I'm the one that's getting the short end of the stick. I don't understand why with me it's really bad. But I had to bring those two doctors together, and they came up with a great plan. And they just applied for extra points because with polycystic liver disease, your MELD score is always low for some reason.
And
So
explain what a
that
meld score is to people who don't know.
um, I really
You
don't
don't have to
know.
say what the
It,
acronym is, you know, but
well,
it's a measure
that
of end-stage liver disease. So,
yes, that score
mhm,
determines how fast you get transplanted.
right.
Now, if someone with cirrhosis is knowingly harming themselves, their MELD score is much higher, even though I might be more symptomatic or I might be even more sick than them. My MELD score is stagnant. So I had to petition for both hospitals. I got letters. I got bumper stickers, signs. I did everything possible to get help, and I finally got approved for those extra points. I'm
Wow.
so grateful. But I'm still waiting. But instead of being at the bottom of the list, I'm kind of in the middle.
But that type of personal advocacy, um, not everybody knows to do it. Not everybody is capable of doing it. You know, one of the reasons why we at GLI have fought so hard for modernization of the organ procurement system and the transplant system is that, you know, if every organ procurement organization was operating as effectively as the, you know, top ones, the highest performing in the country, then there really would be no liver waiting list for
Mhm.
transplantation. We could completely eliminate it, so we wouldn't have to sort of pit people who have cirrhosis against people who have rare diseases, which is something that
Mhm.
saddens my heart, you know, to think about, because everyone's life is important, and every family and
Yes.
every situation and every opportunity to, you know, to change or grow, you know, should be given. And so that's what we fight for. But I love the fact that you brought your doctors together and you sort of taught them how to be a team.
Mhm.
Cecilia, do you want to talk about how you've, you know, created your team and let them know
Yeah.
that they were a team?
So for me, it was a little bit different because I came in really wary of medical providers.
Hmm.
I had already met with that one hepatologist, and that wasn't
Hmm.
a good fit for me. And so when I first met with my hepatologist, can I say his name? He's
You
amazing.
know, if he's amazing, yes, absolutely.
So
Give them a shout.
Dr. Julio Gutierrez, which I know you know, Dr. Gutierrez.
Yeah.
Um, He is amazing. He knew immediately, like I told him my story, like I've been going on for this long.
Mhm.
This is exactly what happened with the last hepatologist that I met.
Mhm.
And I just let him know right up front, like I'm gonna question everything you do. I'm gonna
Yeah.
question everything you say. I am not your typical Mexican American Latina female, who, you know, most Latinos or Latinas, we just trust everything that our doctor tells
Mhm.
us. Um, and that is cultural, it's very cultural.
Sure.
But I've been through so much that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to question everything. And so for me, I told him, like, I'm going to bring in the research articles and I want you to go through them with me.
Mhm.
I am going to ask a lot of questions and there will be follow ups because I'm going to forget certain things.
Mhm.
And so I took very detailed notes, and he knew that I was taking very detailed notes.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it's funny because I actually just met with him not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, and he's like, you know, I noticed you don't take notes in our appointments anymore. And I was like, well, that's because I trust you now, and I know that
Document
you're responsive. So for me,
Yeah.
being a team player means they look and value me as someone who's
Mhm.
on the team. So not just the patient and not just the disease, I'm actually part of the team. And he very much values my opinion. He knows that I'm going to go out and find the articles and do the research, but he also knows that I'm going to have follow-up questions, and he is incredibly responsive. He returns my messages, I mean, most of the time within 24 hours, if not minutes. He knows that I am anxious about PBC because it is so rare and there aren't very many treatments. I mean, there isn't. And so he knows that I'm on this transition timeline right now of, is the treatment working for me? And so we are kind of having to reforge I'm in that stage where I'm asking a lot of questions again, and the what ifs, and what do we do, and how do we move forward? And so for me, it's being part of the team. And so far, he's my only provider. I only see my PCP aside from him. Is being responsive and treating me like an equal. And then he'll sometimes ask, like, what do you think? You know, if you were in my shoes, what would you want to do, or what would you want to hear? And I value that a lot. I value being part of the process for my treatment planning and not just being told what to do.
I think that that's so important. You know, there's a lot of lip
Oh
service to
no.
patient engagement, but often it's not put into operations. And there's a book that I was gifted over the holidays called "What Patients Say, What Doctors
How I
Hear."
get this thing off of mute?
Oh, hold on. We have a little technical difficulties. Will our producers maybe handle that in the back? Thank you. Okay. So the book is called "What Patients Say, What Doctors Hear," and it deals exactly with that, with the issues that you were talking about. That you're bringing in all of this information from all of your past experiences with the healthcare system, all of your lived experiences, all of the thoughts and questions that you've had, and often they're not hearing it. It's not taken into the process, and you're not viewed really as a partner. And so, you know, as the one who has to bear the brunt of if something goes wrong, it's unimaginable to me. It's always been confounding that our thoughts, our, you know, preferences, values, and all the different things that now they talk about in the literature, are not considered, are not paramount. You know, I come from other professional backgrounds where we have clients, and the client is in charge. We're there to consult and to give our expertise and to be treated as professionals and experts. But we never get it so twisted that we think that we're the ones in charge instead of the client. And it's interesting how the medical culture grew up so differently, that it was for the doctors, for the practitioners, rather than the patients. And I know we're changing that these days, but I know it's very hard for both sides, for people in communities who've been acculturated. Welcome back, Tina. For people
Sorry.
in communities, it's okay, who've been acculturated to just do whatever the doctor says, as well as for doctors who, you know, came up and trained as, you're supposed to be the authority, you're supposed to be the lead, you know, you're supposed to interrupt within seconds of somebody, you know, coming into the room. As I was reading the book, what came to mind for me was the time that I had my little list of questions ready, and the doctor plucked it from my hands to, I guess, go through them faster and more efficiently than I could say them. It's still gobsmacked to this day. The fact that they took the list of questions out of my hand, and I know they thought nothing of it. They thought they were sort of helping, they were moving this through, but they almost lost a hand. So I wouldn't recommend any doctors listening. Don't do that. Don't do that, because you might catch somebody on the wrong day, and that could not be good. So I think this part of partnership and of teaching them to be a team. I have about 8 different doctors, and I have to reinforce the fact that they are in fact a team, and finding the right primary care provider who could be the coach. So I wasn't always on point, making sure that they had the information that they needed in a timely fashion, has been a huge weight off of my shoulders as a patient, and allowed me to relax after years of not relaxing and of carrying around all of my notes in the paper to the point where somebody thought that they're like, well, we don't see drug reps. I'm like, I'm not the drug rep. These are my medical records. They're like, oh, you're the patient. Yes, I've just brought everything with me because I don't trust that any of the information made it to you. So the fact that I now have a primary care doctor who really is the coach of a team that acknowledges that they're a team has, made great strides. If not for my physical health, which I think it does, but certainly for my mental health and the mental load that I was carrying as a patient. So that's what we are trying to create for everyone. Tina, maybe coming back to you in the rare disease space, how is putting these pieces all together, or finding not only the medications, but all the different parts of supportive care that you need to live sort of your best life possible. Are they a little bit harder because you have a rare disease? Is it a little bit more explaining that you have to do?
Yes, this disease, like 1 in 100,000 people suffer from it.
Mhm.
A lot of doctors don't know about it, so they don't
Mhm.
know exactly what to say or what to do until they research it. But it is very hard, especially having that stagnant MEL score, being sick for so long, you know, and they can't do anything for you except offer you a new liver, but you can't get the new liver because of your stagnant score. So my everyday life is constantly compromised. The constant itching, the jaundice, the
Mhm.
look like I'm 4 months pregnant, you know, constant fatigue. So it makes everything harder for me. And I'm just coping with it and hoping and wishing. I did have a few people go through the testing to be
Mhm.
my live donor, but unfortunately, you can't have any medical problems. The criteria is so strict to donate a part of your organ. So I had a few letdowns, but I'm still hopeful. But my life
As you
has
should
really
be
been
hopeful.
compromised.
I think that we'll use this platform as a call for more people to get tested for living donors.
Hmm.
In the Philadelphia area, did I catch that?
Yes.
Okay, with a fabulous organ procurement organization, and um, the opportunity to share a part of your liver, and it regenerates. It's a rare organ. It
Yes.
regenerates back in the donor, and the donation can form as a fully functional liver in the
Hmm.
recipient. No other organ can do that, and so please get
Hmm.
tested to see if you can be a living liver donor. That really is responsible for the rise in donation over the past few years. And so we will do everything we can with this episode to to publicize your need and the needs of others for living liver donors. So that's something that we promise, even as we help reform the system so it doesn't get to this point. Um, Cecilia, what do you hope in the future? Advancements, whether it's technological, telehealth or training or education, that would make it easier to be diagnosed or to live for the next patient with a rare liver disease.
So for me, having PBC and finding out that it was super rare was really hard for me. I found a lot of outdated information,
Mm-hmm.
information that even calls it, the old name, which was,
Mm-hmm.
cirrhosis and not cholangitis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, And then I am very much, as a psychologist, I wanted that social support. I wanted that support system. So I craved finding others because
Mm-hmm.
having a rare disease, you feel so silenced. You feel so isolated. And like every time you meet someone, you have to re-explain everything and tell them exactly what it is and why it's so rare. And for me, why I look okay and why I, look healthy, but
Mm-hmm.
inside, I'm not. And so I found that was really isolating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, early on, I joked that they thought I had psychological issues and depression and anxiety. And by the time I finally got diagnosed, I actually did,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt so lonely and
Right.
isolated. And I have yet to meet a PBC patient in person.
We
Um,
will fix that. That we
Wow.
can
and,
fix.
I went to the A3 conference and I was like, I'm going to find a PBC patient. And I did not. And that's okay. It's just, you have a rare disease and you're going to be in the room of being the only person who
Right.
has this.
And sometimes
But for
people
me,
couldn't
what I
travel.
found, yeah,
Sometimes
for
people can't
me,
travel too, because we have so
yeah,
many PBC patients who have participated in A3 in the past and weren't able to
yeah.
travel this year. But we will definitely, I will personally fix that one. I will.
So for me, I didn't find that social support. I didn't find the online community. It's hard to say because it didn't. So for me personally, when I was first diagnosed with PBC and I found the online support groups, I thought I was in the wrong group. I thought that PBC was an retired, older, white women disease. And I'm going to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
because that was all I was seeing. And
Right.
that's still all I see. And so finding other Latinas or even just ethnic minorities or
Mm-hmm.
even moms of young kids,
Right.
like the question of the day is, what joy has your grandchildren brought you? And I'm like, your grandchildren are older than my daughters. And that's great. And it's amazing that they're able to connect and find that. But I'm not retired. PBC has taken so much of my life. I've changed my last name to my husband's last name because I don't ever want to be profiled in the medical community.
Mm.
I've quit teaching because I'm so fatigued that I don't have the energy to teach. I have went from working a clinical practice and doing pro bono of 45 plus hours to 12, sometimes 8, because I'm exhausted. And so I wanted to find other people who are still in the work setting and have young children. And how do we navigate that? And I hadn't been able to find it. And so what I found going through A3 was that
Mm-hmm.
my community, my support system wasn't narrowed down to diagnosis. It was the liver community. It was the rare disease community. And I found, and I get emotional over this because sitting in A3, I realized I had a family I never knew I had. I realized I had cheerleaders and support that I had never in my life experienced. I was shy. I was silenced for so many years that when I took the microphone, I was really nervous to tell my story. And after it just melted away, everyone came up and was so inclusive and supportive. And it just ignited me in a way that I never thought I would find because I never thought to look outside of my diagnosis. And so being rare can be isolating, but I would say, one of the biggest things you can do is look for the community that feels right for you. Look for the community that is a good fit and it's different for everybody. For me, I found it in the general liver community. I always say I didn't want to be an advocate. Advocacy kind of found me.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt so at home, and I had yet to feel that way in my entire experience. Um, and I'm still very much connected with the people that I met in A3. And, some have taken me under their wing, and it's created all these opportunities for me to use my voice And that gave me back my power, the power that had been stripped away from me. And so, for me, it's really just, my message would be find your community, and it doesn't have to be disease specific. If that's great and that's a good fit for you, awesome. Yes, I would love to see a more diverse PBC community, or younger people, or ethnically diverse, and I'm working on that. But for now, I don't have to be narrowed into that community. I can just be part of the liver family, and that's what it is.
It is. We built it for you. So
And
thank you.
I never knew it existed until I was thrust into this world, and I'm forever indebted to it because it gave me my voice back, it gave me my power back.
Well, we're listening, and I take everything that I hear on these GLI lives as both as a challenge for what we need to continue to build and to do. So I'm listening closely and taking down notes, and always trying to be better. And I'm so grateful for both of you today and every day, and we'll look for every way that we can continue to support and stay connected. So thank you, and thank you to all of you who are listening and watching.
Please be sure to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. Join us weekly on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Time for more episodes of GLI Live. Check out our website, globalliver.org, and follow us on social media to learn more about the Global Liver Institute and stay up to date with the latest in liver health. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay connected.